man will have to maintain 50 women. Not marry, maintain. Why? There's only one explanation. That there will be a catastrophic decline in the birth of baby boys. So it will be a world filled with women. And therefore with your election system, women will rule the world. Madam Prime Minister. And then they'll ask, how many men do you have in your cabinet? Can't you find any men to be judges? Can't you find any men to be generals in the army? We need more men in the army. Women will rule the world with your system, your political system. What is it that's going to cause the decline? Catastrophic decline. A medical doctor in Canada explained to us that the male and the female chromosomes in the sperm, there are male and female chromosomes in the sperm. And when the male chromosome does not fertilize the egg, then the default is a female. So if a baby boy is not born, then the default will be a baby girl. He said that the radiation from cellular phones and the radiation from your laptop computers, notice where the laptop computer sits, and also the effect, the negative effect of genetically modified food, has the impact of weakening sperm production, and in the process weakening the male chromosome to such an extent that eventually the male chromosome will be too weak to fertilize the egg. And so baby girls are going to be born. And when that happens, then a slave woman will give birth to her mistress. What we've done tonight, it took some time to do it, is to take you on a tour to explain the philosophy of gender in Islam. Perhaps for the first time in your life you've heard it. And then arising out of our explanation of the philosophy of gender in Islam, to then turn to explain marriage. And to then end with an explanation of the functional role of the male and the female in marriage and in society. In the process of making this explanation, we pointed out that Dajjal is in control of the world today. And Dajjal is attacking this and attempting to turn it upside down. And so around the world today, we live in a collapsing society. How do we respond? There are only two choices. If you do not follow Allah and His Messenger, you're going to be following Dajjal. We pray that Allah may protect us from the fitna of Dajjal. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ Ameen. What is the significance of the year 2012? When the enemy starts to beat the drums on something, I know that I have to read between the lines. And they've been beating the drums on 2012 for a number of years now. And that cannot be by accident. My understanding, and when I give my opinion, remember, I can be wrong. And when I give my opinion, no one should accept my opinion unless and until you are convinced that I am correct. That is respect for your own intellect. I believe that they have chosen 2012 as the timing, the countdown for the transfer of power from the United States to Israel. And so the collapse of the US economy, the collapse of the US dollar, and the US economy and the US dollar are now in hospital, in the ICU ward. So death is close. And Israel then launching her big wars. Why does Israel have to launch these big wars? You've got to read this book, Jerusalem in the Quran, to understand. Why does Israel want to rule the world? This is around the corner. So I believe that 2012, the drum beating, is to prepare mankind for these dramatic things. So when the 2012 comes, they would not disappoint mankind, because mankind is psychologically prepared for dramatic events in 2012. We are facing with men who are not functioning as Qawwam Nisa. Instead, they take over the role and be it running the family and community. How to resolve this problem? Okay. When men abandon their functions, then women have to take over and perform the function of both the men and the women. This has happened in North America because of slavery. Slavery not only destroyed the family, but slavery destroyed the male, destabilized the male, so that the men who were freed could not function responsibly as husbands and fathers. And so the African American woman, and we have African Americans in this gathering here, they could probably explain the subject much better than I can. The African American woman has had to function as father and as mother. But she did not abandon her role as mother. No. Because she did not abandon her role as mother, the children still grew up. And they grew up stable. What Dajjal does is he causes the woman to abandon her role as a mother and to assume the male role. We have our way of dealing with delinquent men. I don't know what Dajjal has in his society, but ours is to retreat to the remote countryside and build communities, micro-communities. And in these micro-communities we establish Islam. You want to see what is Islam? Don't go to KLCC, come to us. Don't go to the New Straits Times, come to us. And here you will see what is Islam. Because in our kampung, any man who becomes crooked is not maintaining his wife and children, or his wives and children. The kampung will take action against him. He'll become an outcast. So we will have a social system to ensure that our men remain responsible as fathers and as husbands.
Why do we see second marriage is a sunnah? Allah commands verse, marry 2, 3, 4. And you can't be just, then take only one.
This subject will be for the next lecture on marriage. I could not take up today. I could not. We started at 8 o'clock, we stopped at almost 10. So I could not take up the whole subject. So plural marriages will be for another day. I could not take up the age of marriage for a girl. I took up for the age of marriage for a boy. But the age of marriage for a girl is critically important. Because the elections are going to be held in Egypt soon. Ikhwan is going to win the election. Everybody in Washington knows that. Yeah? Washington is supporting the Ikhwan now. And when Ikhwan wins the election, Ikhwan is going to enforce Sharia, because Washington will tell him, enforce the Sharia. And like cattle they follow. And when they enforce the Sharia, then an Egyptian family will come forward to the Sharia court with a daughter who is 6 years of age and with a man who is 55, and asks for nikah. And the Sharia court will rule that it is jaiz. And then CNN and Al Jazeera, you know their sisters, CNN, Al Jazeera, and all the television stations in the world are going to capture that marriage of a 55-year-old man with a 6-year-old girl, and Muslims are going to become the laughing stock of the whole world. Many Muslims are going to leave Islam tomorrow because of this subject. The age of marriage in Islam, but I couldn't take up that subject today. That's another lecture, inshallah. In Surah Al-Kahf, they fled to a cave. Nabi Muhammad ﷺ said the time will come when a man, in order to preserve his faith, would have to flee to the mountainsides where rain falls and take with him some sheep and goats. I know many politicians will criticize Nabi Muhammad ﷺ for that. But we have not as yet reached that stage for most of us. So I have said, if you remain in Dajjal's social order, you're going to destroy your faith and your family. You have to get out of his embrace. In order to get out of his embrace, for example, you've got to stop using this bogus and fraudulent and utterly haram paper currency. Paper money is haram. And if anybody differs with me on paper money, I say no problem. No problem. You can have your opinion and I have my opinion. We go our way. You say it's halal, I say it's haram, okay, no problem. But if you want to come after me with boxing gloves and you want to stop me from preaching on this subject, I have a warning for you. If you are so convinced that this paper money is halal, I have a warning for you. And through this microphone and through this lecture, I send the warning around the world. If you want to stop me from preaching that this paper money is haram, then I say come. If you have the courage to read, come. Come and let us both raise our hands and pray to Allah to curse with an eternal curse and to punish with eternal punishment whosoever of us is wrong on this subject. If you have the courage, come. Because I have studied my subject. And this is not an empty tin talking. This is a man who has studied his subject. He knows what he's talking about. So if we want to get out of the grip of Dajjal, we've got to stop using this paper money. And we have to return to the money which is in the Quran and the Sunnah, which is the dinar and dirham. I don't think you can do that in KLCC. You can try. I say it's possible in the remote countryside, in kampung. And what's the definition of a kampung with me? A kampung is a kampung when you cannot use a cell phone. That's a kampung. Men هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن. They are your clothing, your garments, and you are their clothing, their garments. When last did you leave your home to go out without putting on clothes? Huh? Did you ever?